What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sherdog.com. You are here in the trenches. I am Ant Walker, live in Las Vegas. Doesn't look like I'm in anything spectacular right now. I'm at one of the homies' houses right here, crashing at his spot in Vegas for UFC 235. And once again, you know this is my favorite part of everything right here, to do a show with an exceptional man, a man who needs no introduction, but I love introducing him because he's great. He's incredible. He's phenomenal. He is the one, the only Captain Credential himself, Mr. Jason Burgos. Jason, how are you doing, brother?
I always wonder if there's somebody behind me, because it can't be me you're talking about. It can't be. I wish it was. What's going on? There's somebody behind me, but I am myself. I am doing well. That person you're talking about, they're probably doing good too. I'm excited as always to talk some MMA business industry. I mean, but you are really the man of the hour, the true corporal, the true lieutenant, the general of credentials right now, as you're going all over Las Vegas covering not only the UFC, soon you'll be covering one, soon you'll be having dinners with Chatri and Sissy and all these people, and you're very, very popular, well-known individual. I mean, you've got managers hollering at you for $1 at you. It's unbelievable these days for you.
I wouldn't quite go there. I mean, here's the thing. Whenever I'm out here in these streets, I'm out here doing what I do for Sherdog, and on the ground for these fights. They always ask, "What's up with Jason Burgos?" That's what they ask. They ask, "How is Captain Credential?"
They don't.
Say, "Why are you here? Why is Captain Credential not here?"
They don't.
They don't want to see me. They don't want to see. They want to see. They want to see the man himself. So I'm happy to work with the man himself. I'm happy to have a platform with the man himself, and we can talk about the business of punching people in the face and sometimes choking them unconscious. That is what we came to do. So I guess we'll start off with just kind of what's happening here right now in Vegas. So actually, I need to send the link to this look, Jay's got the link already. Good. Set this up so on the fly. So as you've probably heard me fuss about before, and it's not really that big of a deal, but hey, it's what I do. I fuss. The media stuff always doesn't go as planned. So the schedule is laid out for the fighters supposed to, especially open workouts. Open workouts are by far my least favorite part of fight week. It's cool for the fans, but it's just, for media members, it's just we could take it or leave it. It doesn't really. I don't think it adds a lot to what we do here. We don't really see anything spectacular most of the time. And this open workout, as is the tradition, started late, ran over a lot of time, and put it this way, I got there at 11:30 Pacific. I think 11:30 Pacific, where they had a media lunch, and I'm just leaving the MGM and getting here to do this show, and it is 5:10 Pacific right now. So yeah, so that's the day. That's why you didn't see any tweets about this before, because I was out there working, doing some other stuff, and I normally set all of that up. But anyway,
so what makes you go? Why go anyway? I mean, a media day, I totally get why the workouts at this point.
I mean, at this point, it's just just in case something happens. Maybe you'll find something.
Something did happen today.
Yeah, exactly. Something did happen. So it's good to be there for that moment, for some of these things. Also what I look for in fight week, and I think we've gone over this before when we're talking to fighters and, in media days and whatnot. And you look for little things as far as their body language, their physicality, as clues as to what's going on in their minds, because, typically a lot of times the actual answers they give you when you talk to them about their camps and all stuff, it's always, I had the best training camp of my life. Yeah. I'm so close to making weight, and this is the easiest wake up. It's always that same line. But when you're there on the ground and you're looking someone in the eye and you're in front of them and stuff, it adds a lot of context to what's going on that you won't catch otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's why I do it. Man, I swear every time I go to an open workout, I'm like, why? But here I am. I am trash for that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started, because we don't have a lot of time, because as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to the One Championship media workouts at Extreme Couture. So we're going to have to wrap it up soon, and we'll just get cracking with the first question from the homie Frank McEgger. Salute to you, Frank. He says, which fight do you guys see as a real possibility for Thiago Santos after his impressive TKO over Jan Blachowicz?
I had to look it up. I had to go to the UFC's top 5 rankings for the division, and there weren't a lot of clear guys. The first one, obviously, and I've seen this thrown around a bit, was Gustafsson. The one I actually liked, I'm not sure, Jay, if you could tell me if he has a fight, but the one I liked was Dominic Cruz. I feel like he has a fight coming up, or maybe there's just Dominic Reyes, sorry.
It's like, well, I hope Dominic Cruz is not Thiago Santos.
Does he have a fight coming up, Dominic Reyes, or has just been rumors of him getting a fight?
I don't think there's an official booking.
That would be an interesting one, because Reyes really needs that opponent, that establishing opponent, that guy that's a name that maybe puts him in legitimate contention, but Santos will be interesting, because Santos is not necessarily a long-time light heavyweight. He's establishing himself, so it would kind of be like an eliminator, almost like a number 2 contender, or maybe honestly number 1 contender eliminator at this point, because after Anthony Smith is Gustafsson, who's already lost. It's Volkan Ozdemir, who's not really in the picture. It's him, so it makes a lot of sense.
He's fighting Volkan Ozdemir at UFC London, which that one flew right over my head. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I felt like he had somebody.
Well, the thing is, I don't want to put Thiago Santos versus Dominic Reyes, because you're killing off a contender, and light heavyweight, more so than any other division, needs fresh bodies to fight for a belt. So I would say, depending on how Saturday night plays out between Jones and Smith, I honestly wouldn't mind if Santos got the next shot. That wouldn't bother me one bit, especially if Smith wins, and then there's a history there with Santos and Smith. Of course, the immediate rematch with John Jones would probably be to follow, depending on how the fight goes and if Jones is injured or whatever afterward. But I don't mind Thiago Santos getting the next shot. I mean, it's not like we're favoring anybody over Jones, or we're thinking anybody is going to give him that hard of a time. But we want to see belts logically defended. We want to see contenders do what they have to do to prove they're worth a title shot, and then fight the champion. And regardless of what we think the results will be, that's exactly what would happen if Thiago Santos fought for the title next. I mean, outside of that, I honestly wouldn't mind, say Misha Cirkunov defeats Johnny Walker Saturday, put him against Misha Cirkunov. I don't mind that fight either. Or even if Johnny Walker wins, hey, Walker versus Santos, but once again, you're killing off a contender. So yeah, I think at this point at light heavyweight, the best game is to play economical. You don't have a lot of names to work with as far as legit title contenders and guys who have earned their spot, and you don't have to look at their record and say, oh, well, he just lost his fight earlier in the year. You don't have too many guys like that. So I say keep those guys sort of protected to get them to that title shot. So at least you got fresh bodies in challenging for the belt. So Thiago Santos for the title shot next is my call.
I mean, I like it, but just him a title shot of Ray just seems terrible. But yeah, the division is. I
mean, it's a terrible division. It's really a bad division as far as the names. I mean, we're now just starting. I think we're just starting to build some momentum in that division with Reyes, with Santos, with Johnny Walker. There is some glimmer of hope, and that hope isn't necessarily to set the world on fire, but that hope is to at least give us something to look at, for the next couple of years until Jones decides to go to heavyweight, if that's what he wants to do. So I think that's really the best we can hope for at this point. And, of course, everything I'm saying is null and void if Anthony Smith goes in there and knocks his head off Saturday. So maybe I should just shut up before I put some omen in the air.
Did you actually suggest Anthony Smith could win?
You know what? It's highly unlikely, but the man hits very hard, and whenever you have a punch that hard, you have to at least consider the fact that, okay, he has the ability to knock someone unconscious. And this isn't like football or basketball or something like that, where 99 times out of 100 the better team wins. In a fight, a lot of times the guy who isn't the best fighter wins because shit happens. We've seen it time and time again. Do you really think Michael Chandler isn't a good a fighter as Brett Primus? But Brett Primus won because shit happened. Like this is something that comes with combat sports. Buster Douglas is not a better boxer than Mike Tyson. He never was, but he won because shit happens. So that's one thing that we always need to consider with combat sports, because it takes one mistake, just one miscalculation, one error in judgment, one slip of concentration to end your night. And that goes for anybody, no matter how good you are, no matter, if you're considered the greatest of all time, that can happen. Is it likely? No, but it's something that we should at least consider in the realm of possibility, because guaranteed, if it does happen, the world's going to get set on fire. So
I think you've got a better chance of the world getting set on fire than him winning on Saturday night. I
agree. I'm not saying go ahead and I'm not saying run to the betting tables, but I mean, was he like I heard some books he's like a 14-1 underdog.
Woo! Woo!
I mean, hey, if you got $20, you got $100 or something that you don't quite need.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Throw it down, man. See what happened. All right. So next question is from Will KO. He says, we going dark early. He says, Matt Hughes restraining order. Talk to me. What is your stance on this recent news, and did you read his book? No, I did not read his book, but being that I am relatively new to MMA media, at least to where I have access to fighters and live at events and talking to other media members, I haven't heard a lot of nice things about Matt Hughes. I'll put it that way. Definitely respect his legacy. Definitely respect what he was able to accomplish in the cage. Definitely sympathize with the fact that the man nearly died not that long ago getting hit by a train. I believe I was live on air with Mike Fridley, like right before, like right when the news broke. I think we were doing an episode of Beatdown when that news broke, and it's like, hey, it's terrible to hear about that. Now you can use it as a justification or some sort of reasoning behind this restraining order and the alleged domestic abuse and him attacking his nephew and some of the other allegations that have come up. But from what I didn't read that book, but I have read excerpts of it. I've talked extensively with several other media members about it, and they're like, yeah, like this is, he attacked his wife or not beforehand. Nobody knows about that. No, don't want to throw that accusation out, recklessly, but he wasn't a good person from what I've heard. Okay. In a book where he's talking about literally torturing baby pigs by cutting their testicles off and throwing them at his friend for a joke, and, all sorts of date rapey sounding things that were in that book, and attacking people, and it just all sorts of just really just mind-numbingly reckless and horrible, reprehensible behavior that took place well before he ever got hit by that train, well before he was ever in the UFC. So I think this is consistent with a pattern of behavior that he himself put down in that book. This wasn't some sort of expose that was written that was unauthorized. This was him relating his stories of his life to whatever author is credited with this book. So, I mean, these are the stories he volunteered. God knows what he didn't talk about. I don't think we should really be, I probably should close this door because there's like his big ass truck honking the horn right outside. I'm sure it's coming through on the mic, but yeah, man, I don't think we can just say, hey, he got in a train accident and CTE. I'm sure that's not helping matters, but if you were doing that sort of thing before, maybe it just made you more the person you already were.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too, unfortunately, I wasn't necessarily shocked by it. I didn't read the book. I did see the similar excerpts that you did. You saw too. I was at the 229 presser at the Radio City, and they played the UFC specific, the Fight Pass documentary on him. And even in the documentary, even the wife and him kind of admitted like the marital issues they had even while he was a fighter. And I mean, there seems to be a lot of factors. He seems like you mentioned, maybe not the greatest person in the world. He also seemed like a guy that had issues filling the void. So, former fighter. So, possible violent outbursts aren't necessarily a shocking occurrence later in the career. Not saying that happens to every fighter, but it's possible. I mean, because of possible brain trauma, and then he has legitimate brain trauma from the train accident. So there's a lot of factors that doesn't necessarily make it too surprising. It's unfortunate. And I think I saw on Twitter they were like, I think it was like details of the police report and some of the stuff, and like you mentioned, the nephew and all the kind of stuff. And it just sounds like someone that's probably from brain injuries and all the other kind of stuff, just like, not all there, and like outbursts and those kinds of things. It's an unfortunate situation, but I couldn't say I was necessarily surprised by it. It was more like, dang, you were hoping it would end positively, because that's how the documentary ended, on a positive note. And it's like, life intervened and it was not positive.
Yeah. All right. So we got a follow-up question from Yojimbo. He says, do you think CTE could possibly be a cause in the Matt Hughes domestic abuse incident? Should UFC and other promotions do more to check on the mental health of their fighters? And by the way, those excerpts were written by Sean McCorkle, the infamous Matt Hughes book review. All right. So getting to Jimbo's question, I mean, as far as CTE being a possible cause, yes and no. Like we, just kind of went over. If you've already established a kind of a destructive pattern of behavior beforehand, getting your brain rattled in a train accident and the emotional devastation and the stress and everything that caused outside from just the physical damage is not going to help matters. It is just not going to help it. So I think this at least a factor. Wouldn't say it's a direct cause, because apparently he wasn't the greatest person before this. But as far as what the promotion should be doing, I think every employer, period, should be, concerned about the mental health of their employees, or in the UFC's case, independent contractors, or whatever you want to call them. Like, you have a responsibility as an employer to make sure your workforce is good, and especially in a sport that is, relies on beating someone in the head. There will be problems. Fighters are not necessarily the most normal of human beings anyway. So I'm not shocked that we have some sort of issues as far as mental health in mixed martial arts. It seems like you got to be mentally a little off to want to do it in the first place. So the promotion should be doing what they can to make sure these guys are good. I mean, making sure a fighter is healthy, it goes beyond, making sure his ACL didn't blow out, or making sure his hands aren't broken and he can cut weight effectively. Your mental health has a lot to do with how you perform physically. And even if you're looking at it from just a business perspective, you're not going to make as much money off a guy who is mentally unstable and therefore unreliable to make it to the cage, whether it be for training purposes, whether it be for domestic violence issues or felonies outside the cage, or whatever the case may be. You want these guys to be right, so they're right on fight night. So looking at it from a business standpoint, yes, check up on your athletes, make sure they're good. What do you think, Jason?
In terms of the CTE thing, yeah, that's possible. I mean, it's possible for any athlete in any sport that's as physical as they can be it hockey, football, boxing. The thing with should promotions do more to check? Absolutely. Of course they should. And like you said, any employer should. But I feel like from the interviews I've done, at least with fighters, and I would imagine even with promoters on a certain level, it's checking on mental health would mean checking on brain injuries and brain trauma, brain damage, and the CTE. And I think that is that one ugly dark cloud of the sport. I feel like promoters and fighters are just going to try to ignore and not bring up, because if they open that Pandora's box, they're going to get a lot of bad news, and it will change the sport more than even steroids. I think could change the sport. When I've asked fighters about, do they have concerns about it, it's never like, yeah, I feel like I got to get out of this thing sooner than later, because I think it's going to be a problem, and I'm really worried about it. It's more like, yeah, I know it's there, but it's just a part of the game. I mean, if I even talked to one fighter, it was Kendall Grove, who now fights for bare knuckle fighting. He pretty much said, I probably have it now. And he wasn't going to say, oh, I'm going to stop. He was just, it's a part of the game. So Yeah, they should do stuff like that, but will they? I don't know, because it'll open the door to bad news for a lot of people, and I think they'll probably just unfortunately avoid, because it's just the nature of this particular business that they're part of, and that's that one area that they're gonna act like it's not happening, you know.
Yeah, I think that you're right on the money with that one, man, because if you're stomping out PEDs, if you're trying to curb a lot of other illicit or dark dealing activity in the sport, you could take PEDs away. You can take all that away.
Yep.
And the sport itself wouldn't change as far as the dynamics of it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, some guys wouldn't last as long. Yeah, be more injuries, and there will be things that would negatively affect the sport,
mm-hmm.
or positively affect the sport in some ways. But the sport itself wouldn't change. The rules would still be: you go in there and you hit the other guy, and he tries to hit you.
Yeah.
But when you start, you start dealing more with CTE or whatnot, it's an unfortunate reality of what these guys do. Yeah. And here's one thing that I find really interesting here. So of course, when the NFL had the CTE scandals and they were hiding all this research and whatnot, what they did was wrong. What they definitely did was wrong. But one thing that I think we should really keep in mind here is that everyone's hitting one another as hard as they can. This is inherently an unhealthy activity.
Yeah.
So the idea that you can find a healthy way to beat someone in the head, it just doesn't exist. I mean, this is a reality in training even. Yep. This is something I've dealt with to an extent in training. Like I had one story, sparring a partner of mine, years ago, and took a head kick that knocked my vision black and white. And my next memory was sitting in my living room watching TV hours later. I had no idea what happened. From what I was told, I sparred another like 5 rounds and looked good from what I was. I don't remember any of it. I have no recollection of this whatsoever. The last thing I remember was misjudging where the kick was coming, getting whacked upside the head, and then I was watching TV. So, if you are participating in football, in hockey, in boxing, in mixed martial arts, in traditional martial arts, this is a reality. Man, there are times I go home from training now and, my head hurts. Probably not the healthiest thing in the world, but it is a reality that you have to accept when you jump in this. And you've got to know your limitations. Like, what are we, less than a week or so, or maybe 2 weeks removed from Vanderlei Silva admitting that he has like 8 out of the 10 symptoms of CTE, and Scott Coker saying like he's not going to book him anymore at Bellator? I don't believe that. But this is Mark Hunt had a similar issue a couple of years ago. So this is something that we're going to have to see more and more as the sport gets older, as our favorite fighters and these legends and stuff, and they finally reach that point where their bodies just say, "Fuck you, I'm done." And their bodies catch up to all the rigors that they've gone through for all these years. So, I mean, there's more of this down the pipeline, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yep.
It's much more of it. If you are a boxing fan, this is something that's very common to you. It's just that we in the MMA world haven't had enough time with these guys to see the long-term effects of this. So when you are cheering for all the violence and all the trauma and violence and beating someone down, all that, enjoy it by all means, because we all enjoy it to that part of it to an extent. But keep in mind, those are real human beings out there, and they've got real lives, and their life goes on after the events are over and after they retire, and we forget about them and we're on to the next. Their lives are going on. Their families are still there. So let's keep that in mind. All right, so let's move on from that. We've got a question from Bobby Boulders. I believe we've gotten a couple questions from Bobby in the past. Salute to you, Bobby, as well. How do you feel the PFL deal?
The PF.
The PF, yeah. Wow, this has been a long day. How do you feel the PFL deal with ESPN? One's imminent partnership with WADA, Rizin's partnership with TMT, and Bellator's deal with Sky Sports potentially affecting the MMA landscape. Damn, that is a big question right there to tackle. I'll let you start with this one off first, man.
I don't know if it affects the landscape. It's all good things for those promotions. I mean, ESPN for PFL, it's fantastic. I actually interviewed Ray Sefo, the president of fighting operations yesterday. And we talked a little bit about that. I mean, that's huge for them for branding and reach. One going with WADA is great. Another, they've had some nice things in terms of, fixing the issues they had and having the hydration protocols they have now. Now they're getting WADA. They're getting up to the level of a UFC in terms of the ancillary things that they do, which is great. Rise's partnership with TMT, who cares? That's not a landscape changer whatsoever. And Bellator's deal with Sky is like a must. I mean, they're going strong into the European market, and the UK is as strong of a MMA fan base as any. So they needed to get Sky Sports. The fact that they hadn't gotten on Sky Sports and they still do events in the UK was kind of, they had this weird mishmash, kind of deal before, made no sense anyway. So this is, and I don't think the MMA landscape, so to speak, is getting changed. It's just those companies are solidifying themselves, and the landscape itself, I would say, is solidified. So us as fans, us as writers, these, PFL, One, Bellator are strengthened by this stuff, which means they'll be around. They have better long-term security, which means we have things to watch and things to write about, and everybody can be happy about that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Like the PFL
kind of with me. Why are you not with me?
Because whatever.
Because you're Anthony Walk. I know.
Yeah, I am. I'm I think I'm trying to think, did you say this on the show or did you text me that I'm a cranky old man sometimes? I think
it was text, but I mean it's good that you said it here too.
Yeah, I am. I'm a cranky old man. Fuck it. Whatever. That's what I do. All right. So the PFL deal with ESPN, I think, is massive for PFL. And I think for PFL, like to a company that we've heard things as far as them bleeding cash for a little while now. I know I've heard of some interesting talk about their finances. I don't know how much of it is true and how much of it is just speculation. But hey, getting a broadcast partnership with ESPN, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal because they are positioned alongside the UFC, which is obviously the brand leader in mixed martial arts. But the UFC is boosted by this ESPN thing because the worldwide leader in sports positions them next to the NFL, next to the NBA, next to all these leagues that are solidified and that have become ingrained in our culture, ingrained in the global culture, really, especially when you're talking about the NBA. So now you've got PFL position alongside the UFC and alongside the NFL and alongside the NBA when they were like struggling to fill Long Beach Arena just several months back when I went to one of their playoff shows. Like that show was not packed. Long Beach Arena is not a big place. So at least this provides them more visibility than they were getting with NBC Sports, a channel that pretty hard to find for most people.
Yeah. Yep.
So at the very least, at the absolute very least, they're getting like the top level, not the top level, I should say the surface level benefits of the UFC's partnership with ESPN. When you go to a bar, when you go to the airport, when you go to the barbershop, when you go to pretty much any place that has a TV there because you're sitting down and waiting for something, 9 times out of 10, if they put sports programming on, it's ESPN. So now you could be sitting at an airport, sitting at a bar, sitting at a barbershop, et cetera, and you're watching PFL. And I guarantee you most people don't know the difference between PFL and the UFC. They just see people fighting in a cage. And that confusion can be very helpful. A big UFC's card is coming around and PFL's on while you're sitting there sipping your Mai Tai. All right. Not that I drink Mai Tais. Not for me. I'm a whiskey on the rocks guy, but that's another story. So you could sit there and watch PFL thinking you're watching UFC, and fine. You're next thing you know, you're watching Kayla Harrison. Oh, I want to see her fight again. So there are these runoff benefits, and PFL is definitely sitting pretty with that deal, and at the very least got an influx of cash coming in. I haven't heard the financials from that deal. Did you hear any financials from that, Jason?
No, I mean I haven't seen it. I can't imagine it's anywhere near the UFC. It's probably not because one, it's on ESPN. Two, it's on Plus. So I mean, I would guess that deal is more a beneficial deal to ESPN in that they're not throwing away a lot of money, but they're getting content. They're probably giving them a solid amount of money, but they're saying to PFL, look, you get to be on our network. You get this reach you haven't had before. Offer us all this kinds of content as the B-side to the UFC. So I can't imagine it's a big money deal. It's more like just the reach is the benefit, not the money for a PFL.
Yeah, I mean, and quickly, because we got some breaking news we want to get to, but one's partnership with WADA, that's good. I mean, that solidifies something. At least gives the appearance that they're trying to drug test.
Yeah,
so that's good. Golf clap. Rise's partnership with TMT, okay. Just don't let Floyd back in there.
They will. They will.
I don't want to see that at all.
You're gonna see it.
Shut up, Jason. So Bellator's deal with Sky Sports. It's about time they have their European television deals lined up correctly because it has been a shit show over there trying to watch Bellator in Europe. And especially with them trying to make such a big presence in Europe, you need to have the TV deal solidified. So that's good they got that going. All right, so breaking news. First, Walt Harris tested positive for SARM, some sort of banned substance. He is suspended for 4 months, and his win against Andrei Arlovsky at UFC 232 has been overturned. But he proved that it was a tainted supplement, which is why his suspension is only 4 months. I do like the fact that they are giving these guys the time of day to prove their cases. So at least we have the appearance of like a fair system.
Yeah.
Where you actually have a voice, you actually can state your case and not just be kind of tossed to the wolves like we've seen at times past. And also, Vitor Belfort has officially signed with One Championship. So
no shocker there. We knew.
Yeah, I mean
that seemed obvious last week or so. Anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you had the exclusive anyway. You were just sitting on the news because Chatri told you. But
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I mean, I get it for him doing that move makes the most sense. Like, I think Bellator by far has much more interesting options in terms of light heavyweight and middleweight for him. But at this point in his career, the dude was retired anyway, so he doesn't have much left. If one is willing to pay him much more, feeling he has a value that other promotions don't quite see on their level, then he's got to get the money. And if he's getting the most money, then One Championship it is, But it's not the most exciting move because they don't have a lot of depth, at middleweight, light heavyweight. So
yes, I'm just trying to think who is he going to fight.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe just tell WADA to look the other way. Let him juice up, and he'll bulk up and he'll challenge Brandon Vera for the heavyweight title. Whatever. I mean, that's one of those things where I definitely would have preferred to see him go to Bellator.
Yep.
Because we never got to see the Chael fight, and that still would be an entertaining fight. You can put him up against a Rampage. You can put him up against him and Vanderlei can rematch as well. Like there are definitely things. Well, Vanderlei, if he wouldn't get booked anymore if Scott Coker sticks with his word, but there are definitely better moves for him to make in Bellator as far as a matchmaking standpoint. But hey, the easy money appears to be coming from One. He's got a fan base in Asia with his time fighting in Japan. So okay, yeah. Whatever.
And
then also
earlier, golf clap.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll be since I'll be talking to the people from One Championship in just like an hour and some change. I'll ask about like how long term this deal is. This could be maybe this is 1 or 2 fights. He knocks those out quick. Maybe he does go to Bellator. Maybe Bellator and One. All these promotions have intertwined their rosters in certain ways before. So maybe this deal isn't necessarily exclusive. Maybe he can fight in Rising. Maybe he can, jump in Bellator for one off or something. So, at least if the promotion isn't the UFC, the possibilities are a little more open as far as mixing these rosters and just kind of seeing what bubbles up to the surface and what we might actually be interested in. So, all right. So let's see here. Oh, here's an interesting one. One of the 205-pound guys on the roster of one championship is Yoshihiro Akiyama, who I believe Belfort knocked out long ago, and when he first came back to the UFC. All right, so anyway, why in God's name? Excuse me. First, forgive me for starting to read this question without acknowledging the greatness of perhaps our favorite guy. Not perhaps, our favorite guy.
The ace in the hole.
Europe one, who eternally gets the Kung Fu bow of the week. Europe one says, why in God's name does the UFC care so much about these stupid interim belts? Now Poirier versus Holloway is up for one. Does it really help in selling the event, and do fans and fighters really care for them?
I'll jump on this one. I don't know if you saw this. I think it was MMA Fighting that had it. Something like that. That it was a video of Eddie Alvarez, I think, at the LA one workout. He was explaining his views on interim belts. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
That was fantastic. If anybody, for the people that watch this, you haven't seen that, go seek it out because it's great. I mean, his theory on why interim belts I don't really jive with, because at one time interim belts did make sense, i.e. Randy Couture and his contract dispute, but to paraphrase, he pretty much said interim belts exist just so promotions, the UFC, don't have to pay more money, because instead of giving more money and a different slot and pay-per-view points and all that kind of stuff, they just throw that tag out there. And he made the point that it's on the promotions, it's on the fighters too, the fighters and the fans. They have to say interim belts, don't care, don't want it, don't need it, don't give a fuck, move on. And that's the only way the promotions will listen and do stuff. And he's always very smart with his career. He's the guy that tests free agency. He always gets the big money. He's always bet on himself. This guy understands fighter value, and if anyone is to make a point, I believe him as much as anybody, and it's a great point. I mean, they do these so they don't have to pay people more money that they probably deserve, and it sucks because it really takes away the value of championships belts, not even just the interim belts, the main lineal belts. You got lineal champions that aren't champions or getting title fights. Tony Ferguson. So I mean, that's the deal. I agree with him on that, and it's just also it's a way to try to sell tickets and headline events, throw a belt on there, and people just go, oh, it's a title fight. And, it's become, we've been brainwashed into believing it matters when it really should.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so over the interim title thing. I do think in the case of Israel Adesanya and Kelvin Gastelum, that makes sense. The problem is that we've had so many of these for no good reason that now when a good one comes along, one that makes perfect sense, like we're just over it. Poirier and Max Holloway fighting for an interim belt makes so little sense to me, mainly because Tony Ferguson isn't on this card. I know he turned it down. But I think he did the right thing turning it down, at least from a moral standpoint. I mean, he's been the interim champion before, and they stripped that from him arbitrarily, and I don't think he's going to fall for that again. Because this is something that I hammered home very, very adamantly on Collider's MMA Takeover podcast earlier this week. Like, the winner of this fight is not fighting for the undisputed belt next. I'm willing to bet any amount of money on that. Like, that's just not going to happen. Expect Conor McGregor, especially if this Cowboy fight happens and he gets through Cowboy. Expect a monkey wrench to be thrown in these plans, and this interim title will vanish into thin air, just like your man Colby Covington, who I just saw yelling and screaming through a bullhorn at Kamaru Usman. Maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. So you could be like that. Like, that's probably what's going to happen. So I'm just not a believer in this interim belt thing, at least for this. Like, honestly, I think they probably been better off just stripping Khabib if he's sitting out as like some sort of moral stance. I get what he's doing, and I to an extent I respect his loyalty toward his teammates and that, but strip him and have the undisputed belt, and have Tony Ferguson fight Dustin Poirier for the undisputed belt. That's what makes the most sense. But if it makes sense, it just kind of doesn't happen in this world that we live in. So,
and it's annoying too, because you see it even in fake things like the WWE or whatever, or even boxing sometimes. Like, why is there no value in laying claim to #1 contender on a big promoted level. And it goes back to Eddie Alvarez's point of not wanting to pay them. You know, for Poirier and Holloway, that's a perfect fight where she's like, this will decide the #1 contender. You sell it as that. It just sells #1 contender. You don't need to throw a fake ass title belt on them. You know, for Gastelum and Adesanya, where Gastelum is a clear case that I am the #1 contender. I was willing to fight for the title. You say to him, look, you are defending your spot as a #1 contender. We're going to continue this on, and then we're going to pay you extra money. We understand you're taking a risk here. We're going to give you extra money here and make him happy, but they don't want to do that. They're just going to throw titles on the line and make him happy that way. And that's where I give credit to Tony Ferguson, because if that's what he did, he took a stand and said, I'm not going to fight for the fake title unless you're going to pay me a lot of money. Otherwise, I'll just wait and just fight somewhere else. I totally respect that, because, you know, it's probably the best thing to do, and I really wish there were to just put a value on #1 contender. This fight is for #1 contender. This guy is gonna fight for the title next. That's it. That's all you need to let people know. You don't gotta put a fake title. Now, you know, now you have so many people that are like pseudo champions and former interim champions. It's just so convoluted, annoying. It's annoying.
Well, I mean, I will say this though, that the interim titles do carry a bigger paycheck. By the way, a lot of the contracts are structured apparently. If you are in a title fight and if you do have a belt, even if it's an interim belt, it does add value to your fight purse. So there's that. That's a good thing. You know, even the Reebok payout is going to be more in a title fight, whether it's interim or whether it's undisputed. Like that's good. But I think we're really overdoing this. So I'm guessing the UFC has, you know, they very carefully study the market, and they have a lot of metrics and algorithms that determine some of their moves. Maybe there's some metric that's saying that you put a shiny belt on the poster,
for sure,
and people buy it. Maybe totally. That's it. And okay, so from that perspective, yes. But how about this? Just put a belt on every poster, and just don't have the belt actually in the fight. How about that? Just standard. If there's a UFC fight, I just want to see a belt like in the corner at the bottom of the poster. And cool, satisfied. I don't know. Whatever. I'm an idiot. All right. So, all right, let's we got a question from Robbie. And ironically, Robbie is asking about his namesake. He says, at nearly 37, after over 40 fights and coming off of multiple surgeries, are Robbie Lawler's best days behind him?
I feel how can you feel not? I mean, there was a point in his career that it felt like he was probably on the decline already, like at the end of that Strikeforce deal before he got to UFC and then went down a way. So, I mean, it's tough for his age, for the miles and absolute wars he has been on, then coming off of ACL and meniscus tears. Oof, that's I mean, John Dodson, who's a younger guy, he had an ACL and he's never really been quite the same fighter since. I mean, now you got a guy who's not necessarily an explosive fighter, a good fighter, but how do you come back from such a major reconstruction of your knee? And the way he's been acting at the lead up to this fight, I don't know. I mean, he seems different. In a way, he seems happier, which is a great thing, but that's not the guy we're used to. When things change like that, like a mannerism, a style, a vibe, I can't really recall it being normally a good change. And that means, oh, they're different, they're being better. I mean, like, especially later in life, seeing things differently. Like, yeah, he's probably out there to just have fun and he wants to win, but I don't know if that same desire, grind to be the best, to suffer to be the best, I'm wondering if that's left him. We'll find out, and this is a big fight. I'm really excited about this fight more than any other fight on the card. So I'm curious how it works out. But if I had to guess, I said, yeah, at this age, those miles, that knee, best days behind them, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see how you could think anything otherwise. Like, this is not saying that, you know, we want to take Robbie Lawler out to pasture and do him like Old Yeller. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that the guy who, you know, who knocked out Melvin Manhoef and did some of these amazing things in his past is not the same guy anymore. He's 37. Like, that's going to be a toll right there. And add 40 professional fights to that, and you're not talking about a guy who is on the upswing in his career. You know, you think about the Robbie Lawler that beat Roy McDonald at UFC 189. think that guy would have made mincemeat of Rafael dos Anjos.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, but things change. Like, you know, you have these wars repeatedly, and this is the result eventually. I mean, we talked about a little earlier as far as the CTE thing and all that. Like, these miles add up. These men are real human beings, and these things catch up to you. And, you know, about 37 years old is about the time where a lot of things start catching up to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, in his favor right now, as far as the damage is concerned, he's fighting a guy who isn't known to necessarily hurt you,
right?
But he just overwhelmingly beats you within the rule set. You know, so even if he loses badly to Ben Askren, I think he'll come out of this fight relatively unscathed. So at least he'll have one left in him. But yeah, Robbie Lawler is not going to set the world on fire again, unfortunately. But he's still a viable fighter. He's still a guy that you can put in there and get some quality entertainment from. So this fight, I think, makes perfect sense, despite the fact that this is the one guy that Ben Askren didn't call out, and they decided to pair this up. But what do I know? I'm just a clown. All right, so we got a question from another one from Frank McGregor. Says, how many eye pokes will Jones successfully land on Anthony Smith this Saturday night? I say as many as it takes.
I'm going to go solid 1. That doesn't mean he won't attempt more. I'll say he attempts 3, lands 1 successfully.
I say he gets the job done however he needs to get it done. If it takes 1 eye poke, it takes 1 eye poke. If it takes 3 eye pokes, then damn it, he's going to do 4. John Jones is going to go above and beyond, and he's going to get it done. All right, so I guess we are going, because, of course, normally we'd ramble on a lot more time, but in about 15, 20 minutes or so, I need to be packed up, need to be on the road to go see the One Open workouts. Check out some of that content will be available on Sherdog.com. I will not be able to video it so much because I am a trash photographer. Mike Sloan, who's been doing the video for everything leading up to today for 235, he will be unable to go. Therefore, I will get some footage on my phone.
Oh.
And I will or I won't, because the footage would be too crappy. You don't know. Maybe I'll write an article from it. You don't know. I don't know. So what am I talking about? Okay, anyway. So as is the tradition, we're going to close the show with who you got. Now, Robbie Lawler versus Ben Askren. Jason, who you got?
My fight picks, I picked Askren. This is a fascinating fight because is Robbie Lawler done? Is Askren for real? Striker versus grappler. You know, Robbie Lawler grappling used to be very questionable, but got better and went to welterweight, went to AKA. But he's now a Hard Knocks, I think. Askren, you know, has never fought like this kind of level fighter, but at least he's fighting a Lawler that's declined. You know, fascinating fight. I'm gonna pick Askren. I think he'll fight smart enough. He'll fight clever enough. You know, there might be a danger moment, but he'll get that takedown, grind him out. He's always got a great gas tank. Robbie Lawler has a so-so gas tank, especially when it comes to grappling. So I think he'll grind it out, get a 3-round decision.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. I think Askren should be able to do it. And the thing with Askren is, like, all he needs is really to grab a hold of you. Mm-hmm. That's really all he needs. And once he grabs a hold of you, chances are you're going to be on your back. And once you're there, good luck trying to get up. He's a very suffocating guy. He's got a tremendous gas tank. Like, his cardio just goes on forever and ever, and he can maintain whatever pace is necessary to get on top of you and make himself very heavy for the remainder of the fight. Now, Robbie Lawler, of course, has that knockout ability, and we, quite frankly, haven't seen Askren take but so many shots.
Exactly.
Much to his credit. And I don't think we'll see that here. I don't think he'll be able to really land on Askren with a lot of consistency. Let's keep in mind where Askren trains. Like, he trains at Ruthersport, which is home to some highly skilled strikers. Mm-hmm. You know, beyond Tyron Woodley and the power in his hands, the Pettis brothers and Paul Felder. Like, these guys are really good strikers and very versatile attacks. Mm-hmm. You know, he trained with them specifically because he wanted to train against a bunch of strikers to make sure he knew how to not get hit. He's mastered that. You talk about a guy who's had such a successful career, made a whole lot of money, and barely has been touched. I mean, that's how you do it. I think he continues down that path Saturday. I got Ben Askren by decision. All right, so of course, the black on black crime fight, which wow, that was a moment right there. Tyron Woodley versus Kamaru Usman. So this was the poll question of who was going to win. 80% say Woodley, 20% say Usman. I'm siding with the poll, man. I think Tyron Woodley gets it done. We talked about this a whole lot on this show as all the welterweight division chaos has kind of bubbled to the surface in the past several months or so. But I like Kamaru's demeanor at this fight week. I like his demeanor. He's so relaxed. He's so confident. You should have seen him at that open workout, man. He's playing like Michael Jackson and dancing along as he's doing pads and he's having a great time. And he's been smiling. He's calm and relaxed and all that. I mean, same thing with Woodley. Woodley and Askren together are like Batman and Robin. They're like the perfect duo, and they're just playing off of each other and having a good time. There's a lot of good time among both of these guys here, but I think when we're talking about the skill sets, Kamaru Usman is a really good wrestler. Tyron might be a better wrestler, but he's at least as good. Kamaru Usman is, he's not a bad striker. Woodley is a very serious striker. I don't think Kamaru's skill set is going to get it done Saturday night. Now, it may be possible that he can, his output tends to go up as the fight goes on, and he can drown Woodley maybe, and that's what the plan he's saying. Today he said he's going to try to get it done in the fourth round. You think by the fourth round he should be able to break Woodley? Maybe that's possible. I just don't see it that way, man. I think you have to do a lot to break Tyron Woodley. You've got to do a lot to get him to gas out. This isn't going to be like you remember the Jose Aldo Ricardo Lamas fight, where the whole narrative leading up to it was like, well, if you get Aldo, you get him tired by the midpoint, you should be able to take over. The thing is, Lamas wasn't able to get him tired. And I think we can see something like that. I think we can see Kamaru Usman be focused on getting to a certain point in the fight. And then when you get to that point in the fight, if it gets there, and be like, oh shit, like I didn't do enough to actually wear this guy out. I'm that's kind of what I'm feeling is going on. I think Woodley might even get the finish, man. I think Woodley might take him out by the third, maybe early fourth round.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight. I mean, it's by far the more interesting competitive fight of the two title fights. I like Usman's game, idea, strategy there that he thinks he could tire Maya. And it is interesting that Tyron Woodley, outside of Maya, hasn't fought a lot of grapplers. He's fought a lot of strikers. He can be the grappler. He's the one that can change it up, or he can keep it standing. But he's won with his striking more times than not, which is pretty impressive. But with Maya's not a good striker really at all. So I like that he's fighting a guy who's very balanced. He can wrestle, he can strike. The only thing is Usman just does not have pop. Usman's not a guy who's going to hurt you on the feet and finish you, and that's the clear weakness. So there's not that danger zone for Tyron, in that level. So I can see it being interesting maybe late in that maybe Usman does steal a round in the fourth or fifth round because he's been trying to grapple the whole time. But I see it being a Tyron Woodley decision, maybe 3-2, 4-1, but clear, fairly obvious that he wins the fight.
Yeah. All right, so the next who you got, John Jones versus Anthony Smith. Jason, what say you?
John Jones, whatever fucking way he wants it, any way he wants it. There's been few fights where someone can win any damn way they want. I don't see it. Anthony Smith, nice story. Seems like a cool guy. This is an example of the great thing at MMA. You can be somewhere middling. You get a new camp. You click, you mature, and then you rise to the top. And he's one of those guys. But this is just, I love the Sarah GSP comparisons, but this is even bigger in that GSP wasn't to the sport and skill level that John Jones is right now in the sport. I mean, John Jones is a damn near demigod of MMA fighting. So It's just I don't see it. And then also you saw, John Jones, it seems like he's taking this thing very serious. This is not the Gustafsson fight. He's doing late night videotape watching. He knows everybody's on his ass about what happened at 232. He's serious. I think he wants to put on a show. I think Anthony Smith is going to get decimated at the expense of John Jones shutting people up on his quest to be called the GOAT. I see a first round finish of destruction.
I think maybe that finish comes in the second round, just because Jones kind of likes to play with his food a little bit. He'll kind of feel him out a little bit. And I think Anthony Smith will come out extraordinarily aggressive, and maybe just to play it safe, kind of let him gas himself out throwing power shots. And today at the open workout, and normally don't really glean a whole lot from these open workouts, but Anthony Smith was just talking about how his jiu-jitsu is better than John Jones. And and I'm no expert on grappling, but when I'm seeing, them standing right in front of me and they're, he's rolling through stuff with his training partners doing certain drills, I'm like, I just don't see where you're better than John Jones on the ground. I think we're going to get vintage John Jones, take him down and elbow him into oblivion. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I like Anthony Smith's story. I like his first name. His first name denotes greatness. But it's just, I don't think it's going to be enough, man. Even a great name like Anthony is not going to let you survive the fury of John Bones Jones.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So, all right. So that is essentially going to wrap the show up for today. And my homie Oscar of the Mac Life is who I'm crashing with. He is patiently waiting for to hop in this car so we can go to this one open workout. But Jason, let the people know where they can find you. What do you have coming up on Sherdog.com?
As always, Cheap Seats Chat on Instagram and on Twitter. Not too much new this week, though. Hopefully in the next couple, next week or so, my interview with Campbell McLaren, CEO of Combate, should be coming up soon. A lot of interesting stuff, a lot of trash talk from Mr. McLaren. And also I interviewed, like I said, Ray Sefo, president of fight operations for PFL. We talked a lot about the ESPN deal and mostly about developing the roster, which should be announced slowly over the next few weeks for season 2. And look for that. Maybe not this week, probably most likely next week.
All right, cool. So you can find me, of course, on Twitter at Ant Walker MMA. That's also the Instagram name. Let's see what else I got coming up. So Ask Ant. I will be writing that either right after the one workout or tomorrow morning. Just haven't decided. We'll see, because I do have a lot of video to upload and we've had some technical issues. Therefore, our product has been a little bit slow this week, but sorry about that, everybody. We got the technical issues ironed out, and I'll have some video uploaded. You can find The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, the post-fight column. That is going to be live Sunday. I hope Sunday, by the time I'm on the plane home, I'd like for that to be live. So that is the goal. There will also be a preview show with myself and James Lynch. He's also in Vegas for UFC 235. So we're going to do that preview show right after the weigh-ins. We'll get that uploaded as soon as possible as well. There'll be a post-fight show with James Lynch as well. And I will also be on the Walkout Network, putting out some content tomorrow. I'm gonna do something, and after the fight, after the fight's gonna be tricky because I'll be at the post-fight presser, so I can't do the instant, immediate reaction. Maybe we'll make it a Sunday morning thing. It'll be the walk of shame, and everybody will be hungover, and we can enjoy that. But either way, yes. So you know what to do. Follow me on Twitter. Follow the man Cheap Seats Chat on Twitter as well. Oh, and check out Collider Sports. I did another MMA takeover appearance there, so that's on their podcast feed. So of course, you know what to do. You must stay beautiful. You must stay positive. You must stay incredible. You must stay just wonderful in all ways, shapes, and forms. But most of all, most importantly, you must stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.
All righty.